Hello and welcome back to Starting Pitcher Review. This week, really, there weren't that many great outings to talk about, so I'm just going to hyper focus on one here. And this was Simeon Woods Richardson's Monday start against the New York Yankees. This was awesome. Love to see him pitch like this. We got 6 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts. Set a career high, I think, by 4 he broke. I think his previous career high was like 7 strikeouts. And then honestly, 3 walks, 2 of those were to Aaron Judge. I don't mind that at all. I'm not going to complain about walking maybe the greatest right-handed hitter in modern baseball history. Not going to fault him for that. There was a lot to like about this start. It was a little bit of a strange start in some ways, which we'll get to. So first things first, the distribution of pitches here is just phenomenally balanced. More splitter than four-seam fastball. Didn't think we'd ever see that. And then no one pitch stood out as a majority. Instead, essentially, they had a 1 in 3 chance. You're either going to see a splitter, a four-seam, or a slider. And as a hitter, that's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to face a guy who has 3 legitimate pitches that he's commanding well. You just are forced into this guessing game, and the Yankees guessed wrong. And the Yankees are a very good hitting team as well. As we saw in the later 2 games of the series, they gave other Twins pitchers the business, but Simeon Woods Richardson was able to pitch well against them. So first here, I guess second, the splitter and the slider. Man, just awesome performances here. He got out of 16 swings on the splitter, got 9 whiffs. That's awesome. Out of 9 swings on the slider, got 4 whiffs. That's awesome. 7 called strikes on the slider. I mean, these guys were just getting strikes left and right. The four-seam fastball was fine too. It didn't even really dominate all that much. But when you have 2 off-speed pitches that are working like this, you don't really need a four-seam fastball that's doing all that much. And then, literally only 2 curveballs really wasn't a factor at all. And we'll see later that, this splitter is just incredibly well commanded. And I think that's the main reason for the split and the slider to do so well, is that just how commanded they were. What is a little interesting here, and I think what is unusual, is that he honestly didn't get that much chase. And so what really fueled him was that he was just bullying the Yankees in the zone. To have a zone contact rate of just 63% is insanely low. I'd have to check to see like single game zone contact rates. That's one of the lowest I've ever seen. And it was basically almost in line with an O contact, which is highly unusual. To think about it this way, the Yankees were making barely more contact in the zone than they were out of the zone, which is just strange. You don't see that too often. But that is still, that's a way to win. You can beat teams in the zone if it's still commanded well in the zone, which it was, and we'll get to. I guess let's just take a look at it now. Why not? Let's go to the plot chart, and this thing is just beautiful. I would get this put on my wall. This is quite something to look at. We've talked about in his previous start against the Angels, he had a very similar plot, where a lot of four-seam fastball up here and a lot of slider over here. And in some respects, it was a promising start. That strategy was something that I liked, but I think his issue in that start, and the reason why it didn't go so well, gave up 3 earned runs across 5 innings. The reason it didn't go so well is he didn't have a third pitch, really. It was just four-seam slider, and it's extremely difficult to get major league hitters out when you only have 2 pitches and only really one of them was dominating, and that was the slider. This is what it looks like when you have a third pitch that's dominating as well. To just add this dimension of the plate that he could reasonably attack, it just gave the Yankees fits, and he really, really did a phenomenal job avoiding damage here. So this is kind of the cluster, I think, that drove a lot of that zone contact being so low. Because look at that, splitter, swinging strike, called strike. Got a ball on that one, probably should have been a strike. Swinging strike. There's one hitting behind it, that's a called strike. Called strike. Literally just about right down the middle, swinging strike. Okay, Caballero got his hit on that one. That was that, but got a foul. There you go, in play outs. Ball kind of looks like a strike. Got the slider, called strike, called strike. That one was hit. So it's this cluster. I mean, that's a lot of swinging strike and called strike on pitches that are pretty, I would say, solidly in the zone. But I think he got away with it because the four-seam fastball up here, this was what hitters were looking for. I mean, naturally, I think a hitter's eye is going to be focused on the four-seam fastball and where it's going. And so when you see the fastball up here, and then suddenly you got a split even just like a little bit lower, and suddenly you got sliders again, even just a little bit lower, and now away if you're righty and if you're lefty. That's hard to hit. That's really hard to hit, especially if you're not sitting on it, which I don't think they were. And he even got some of these up here, foul. He really didn't get punished on some of these pitches that maybe debatably he should have, but I think that's one of the advantages of his pitch mix because again, Yankees hitters were unsure of what pitch was coming, even though he was, I'd say, missing with some of these. I mean, these are not sliders that you want to be throwing to Giancarlo Stanton, of all people, to Jazz Chisholm, even in a favorable count. Like, you can very easily get punished. But when you're mixing your pitches well and when you're in favorable counts, sometimes that happens. And I think that's what occurred for Simeon, was just we saw a handful of these outcomes fall in his favor, and that's why he was able to rack up 11 strikeouts. Again, 11 strikeouts. It's kind of unbelievable. And then there was one, I think my favorite pitch of the night. Let's see if I can find the four-seam fastball he threw to, there it is, Giancarlo Stanton. Last pitch of the night, and I think he knew it was his last pitch of the night, and he just ripped 95 right by one of the most prolific home run hitters who especially destroys the Twins. And he just ripped it by him at 95 and said, see you later. So this was a lovely start. This was an awesome start. I liked just about everything about this for Simeon. And I had a lot of questions about him being able to get swing and miss like this. It just never seemed like there was that dominant pitch, and it wasn't the four-seamer, and it seemed like it might be the slider, but it seemed like it was just a good pitch, maybe not a great pitch. But if we can get this splitter like this, if we can get like a true off-speed pitch that can, again, let's go back to that plot, that can find excellent locations like this, and he can mix his pitches evenly like this, yeah, that's going to work. I mean, it's a simple strategy, but sometimes the simple ones work the best. Just mix your pitches. And, well, it helps to command your pitches well. It's a lot easier said than done, as Simeon then learned in his next start against Cleveland. And as he's learned in the start before, you don't always have all your tools. But in this one, he definitely had all of his tools. I don't know what judge was swinging at that one. I guess 3-0, it doesn't really matter. And this is what it looked like. So a very encouraging start. Really, it's the only start I kind of wanted to talk about because the other ones for the Twins were not too hot. So again, just loved what we saw out of Simeon here. I think this is going to go a long way to potentially cementing his spot in the rotation next year. It seemed like it was potentially in question just because there were so many names. Taj, of course, Nick Abel. Now David Festa possibly will be healthy enough. Seems like we avoided major trouble with him. Of course, Zebby is very likely to come back. I don't see why not. But with starts like this, I think Simeon will help cement his status. And I think we'll probably see him in the Twins rotation again next year. And I'm excited to see him in the Twins rotation next year. I'm excited to see if he can continue finding this command of the splitter. It looked like a real weapon in this outing, and that was encouraging. So that was starting pitcher review. Next week is going to be our last one. Hopefully we get some pretty good starts to talk about. At least one really good start I'll take. 2 or 3 is usually what I'm looking for, but I guess we'll take at least one. And thank you for joining me.